Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Hey there, Chief Meteorologist Matt Walpon here. Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 5 as we are tracking some scattered showers and thunderstorms out there from time to time. Heavy, mostly well below severe limits, but a few that have from time to time kicked out some 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts as certainly a summertime pattern in a lot of ways in order there. And I think that's one of the things we want to talk about. First off, the storms are definitely on the upswing over the next few days here, evident by the rainfall you see in the background there of our shot in Amory that we'll look at here in a minute. Rain does linger into the night. At least some of those chances do continue way into the evening and even some into the overnight hours. I think storms will remain spotty into the latter part of this week, even the weekend, hopefully trending a little bit drier as we go in the latter part of the weekend, but we'll look at that in more detail with the complete 7-day forecast here in just a couple of minutes. But as we alluded to out there, you're into these showers and you're out of these showers. What was our strongest just a little bit ago in Amory, not quite as strong, though the wind's still jostling around. You can only see one of those guy wires that kind of hold up the tower there, showing that, and you can even see there in the corner as the rainfall kind of has moved out of there. It's knocked out our reporting station there in the Amory area. Oftentimes that ends up being something that happens when we start to have power outages, things of that nature. We'll look at that here in just a moment related to that. Some showers showing up again on the north and east side there, Smithville. What we're also watching here is this kind of green line right there. That is rain-cooled air working its way northward, moving toward Tupelo, Verona, Fulton, and Tremont, the entire I-22 corridor. That could again initiate a few additional thunderstorms. It's just kind of like a miniature cold front, and that little ripple of air sometimes causes a few of those to develop. So that's certainly a possibility for locations up farther to the north. As we look here, again, I'm going to put this in the motion for you. Look over the last 30 minutes. You can definitely see a downswing in the overall intensity on that point in time for most spots there. But again, that is moving toward Detroit at this instant. Bring it back the latest scan there. As we do look 3D on it, that's one thing we did when we did our brief cut-in just a minute ago. And one thing we mentioned is that we're just not looking super high up. But some of these other thunderstorms there, when we get out there closer to Hamilton, Alabama, up closer to I-22, those are only also, I'd say, about 25 to 30,000 feet with the heaviest the precipitation. So that's one of the signs that this is not going to be at a full-on severe level in all likelihood for some of those spots. Again, I guess they kind of work their way in a northerly direction there. As I switch things up, we're going to go wider here for a moment, continue to track some additional showers and thunderstorms. You can see some back out there toward the Water Valley area that we are watching and back out into northwest Mississippi. Again, on Mississippi Live Weather Radar here, Batesville, we show some there for Sardis. These, when we look at a little 3D on them, they are also just, I'd say, a little bit more impressive, maybe slightly higher, especially those ones closer to the Batesville area. We'll hopefully check out that camera for you here in a minute. Might have to wait until we go to the next graphic here. So we'll look at that one here in just a minute for you. But in general, all these thunderstorms, thankfully, are largely below severe limits as they all kind of have popped up from time to time. Let's put a loop on this. We'll make it a 1-hour loop here on kind of the wider shot. And clearly there you can see that rain cool. They are expanding there toward Oxford, expanding kind of multiple directions there toward Oxford and Clarksdale at this instant and time. I show temperatures because this is kind of important because you can definitely see where we have seen some of the rain-cooled air. There's definitely some contrast there. North of that outflow boundary, we've got a lot of lower to middle 90s showing up where we have some of that rain-cooled air around West Point. Back out there toward the Golden Triangle, also Monroe County, we were looking a moment ago, it's more like the 70s. And that's the only only way we're really cooling down over the next few days is if we're lucky enough to get some of that rain-cooled air, which is more the exception to the rule than the rule. And that does use up a lot of the fuel. When we look at the futurecast, we look in particular at that fuel. The yellows here represent a significant amount of fuel. That instability, that hot and steamy that you're feeling, that is what helps to contribute to the storm development. And as you can see across the region, it remains high. Of course, where we have the holes there, clearly that's where we've used up some of that fuel. So our hour-by-hour forecast, or with the next 12 here, we're 40% on that rain coverage at 6 p.m., 87 degrees temperature. Notice how it drops by 9 and by midnight. But I would say it doesn't completely go away. Even 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a chance for just maybe a few isolated showers. So the pattern keeping some of those deep into the overnight period. And if you're under these, heavy rainfall is certainly a possibility. We'll look at some of those totals that we've seen again today and over the last few days coming up here in a couple of minutes, down to about 71 for early tomorrow. Wide shot here shows nothing of real, super duper interest out there. Gotta go wider before you even start to see even our nearest front. I'm gonna go real wide here for a second. As you can see all the way up there toward Kansas and Missouri. It's having a hard time penetrating this high pressure center, and I'm gonna go kind of on the satellite perspective here to show you that in a little more detail. We'll go to the real colorful, we call infrared satellite here for a moment. Pop that up there. And so you can definitely see longer loop, as we make this say a 12-hour loop there instead of an hour. Certainly things are a lot more active out where, of course, we had the remnants of that tropical system all the way out here to the northeast. But you have this disturbance down in the Gulf, kind of something that we're watching there, more active weather in the north and west, but we're just kind of in this zone in between where we just have enough shear to produce some of these isolated storms. And so we'll continue to probably have those obviously into the evening. As we zoom this in here a little bit closer around our region. And as we do, you'll notice how we're not the only ones that'll continue to have some evening thunderstorms, and we're still 10 p.m. here, mostly diminishing, more close to the Jackson area, where a few of those are heavier. And you'll notice how we continue to have some of these try to extend deep into the overnight hours for some of those locations down here in the zone from around Carrollton, back out there toward around Kosciuszko perhaps, or Louisville. So Highway 82 corridor, most likely locations to possibly see some of that before we redevelop things into tomorrow afternoon, as the pattern remains at least somewhat stormy. So from 71 in the morning to about 78 degrees by 9 a.m. We're 87 by noontime. A couple isolated storms popping up there with a greater quantity into the afternoon. We expect up around as high as we'll say about 50, maybe 60% on that rain coverage there. The 80% we show is a point pop looking at quarrying just the far northern portion of the state. We'll look at the entire region come up here in 60 seconds as we again look ahead at some rain potential. Obviously underneath these storms there are going to be heavier amounts, but on a fairly widespread scale, 1/2 inch to 2 inches possibility over the next few days, with some locations obviously much higher than that. Full look at your forecast coming up here in 60 seconds on Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lawpon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lawpon has proven himself trustworthy.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lawpon.
Well, thank you for joining us again here on Mississippi Live Weather at 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. By the way, if you're one of those folks who's been asking a lot about the different TV apps like Roku, Fire Stick, I know for sure, according to folks, that we should have, okay, so I guess I don't know for sure, I haven't seen it with my own eyes. yet, but I'm 99% sure that Roku app has finally dropped a little earlier on this afternoon. Has all live feeds to a lot of the cameras like this here across the region. This one in Batesville, looking into obviously the gray clouds as we obviously have a lot of thunderstorms around. You can see on the lower left-hand corner of your screen there, of course, the showers on either side. Luckily, no severe thunderstorms with this at this point, at least to this point that we have seen. Other cameras we're watching, of course, down there toward Winona, kind of looking into and through a few of these, but still showing up with sunny skies, 80 degrees temperature there as well. Again, we've had some showers and thunderstorms, kind of tried to cool things off a little bit. I think we've been actually pulling the temperature from Greenwood here, and there's one of those heavier showers there close to town that showed up. The rain kind of going across there, and yeah, it feels like 99. That's rough out there, but I guess expected in this sort of scenario. We'll start with that Batesville storm here for a moment and look in a little more detail at that. We do not have, when we kind of look at the specific hail potential here, a lot of hail developed on this. We can there's a lot of new tools we have with Mississippi Live Weather Radar that I haven't had access to before. So I'm still learning which of these is best in which situation. So in this instant here, this is kind of a really quick way to say, hey, if we're just, from a 1,000-foot view, or obviously a lot higher up. But anyway, where do we have some obvious hail? I'm not showing a lot of that out there. I think we have enough precipitation loading in the atmosphere. That's largely not the case out of these thunderstorms today. Let's go ahead and loop this. We'll make this an hour-long loop here for a moment. And again, even on this shot here, not a lot of hail. So it is the heavy rainfall that largely has been the story to this point. Speaking of that point, look at some of those, let's do 24-hour rainfall totals. Again, that would include some spots from back to last night. And you have all the higher amounts that we had back there toward Winston County with that. So it's kind of bring it down here to the last 6 hours. And there are some spots out here closer to Greenwood and Craigside and Avalon and LaFleur there, where you see the yellows on Mississippi Live Weather Radar, those storm totals for some of those spots there, up in excess of 3 inches, just because those have not, storms haven't moved. So that's why we were looking at that Greenwood camera a minute ago and just how obviously cloudy and dark and dreary that looked there. So again, fairly heavy rainfall totals, just poking and prod that one a couple of different ways. Bring it back here to the radar mode, the just typical rainfall mode here. Those storms, as we talked about in that cut-in, if we had that storm track get into the Grenada, let's go ahead and put that loop on it, because I think that's the thing that's, when you get to these storms, there's just something where these are developing there, they're not moving. And that's where that flooding potential in some spots is a possibility if they just don't move. So again, not a lot of forward motion on that. But clearly there is forward motion on this green line here, what we call an outflow boundary extending from Pontotoc to Tupelo back toward around the Fulton area. Let's go ahead and see how far that has moved over the last little bit here. And that's an important tool to be able to figure out, how quickly these are going. So I show it going, give me a second for the next loop. Actually, I'm going to show that outflow expanding northward at about 17, 18 miles per hour. So let's put a storm track on that there. And see if we can match that as closely as we can. And again, I expect that we'll probably continue to have some of these thunderstorms moving northward. Let's go ahead and clean this up just a little bit there. You can see all those locations northward. A lot of those are storm shelter locations as they head northward with this. We have at the Tupelo, we show about 525. I typically am going to pull off these storm shelter locations when we're not in severe weather coverage. Just didn't do it today because I had it on there from the other day, so I'll have to clear that off here fairly soon. Bringing it in a little closer to Oxford, we kind of have some of those thunderstorms coming at you from both directions. We did not look 3D on this portion of the thunderstorm just a little bit ago. We will now, as we show, again, the ones kind of closer to College Hill and Aylesville, moving there in the direction of Abbeville, probably some of our stronger at this time. We're going to do a cut of this thunderstorm there to see how high it is, and honestly, just to assess and see if it's possible that it could try to produce something more significant. You can see the top of the thunderstorm there, we'll call an overshooting top, extending up closer to around that to be 30,000 feet, so 40,000, maybe 45,000 feet on the top of that there. And so when that moves over top of College Hill out here toward the lake, maybe Abbeville eventually there, that's going to probably have some of those 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. But thankfully, we are below severe limits on really all these thunderstorms, and hopefully that continues to be the case as we go into this afternoon. Let's put a loop on this here again, and I'll again track that one. We'll say that one moving a little bit faster. We'll say about 20 miles per hour. So giving you some times there closer to Abbeville. We show Abbeville about 545 for you if it continues at about that speed. Let's widen things a little bit. And again, looking northward up here toward Holly Springs and up toward Benton County. As we've mentioned a few times, we're going to spend a little more time on radar than we typically have in the past because our area has increased just a little bit. So as we track these storms, it just takes a little bit longer to get through some of those here. So apologize for that. Holly Springs back here toward really all of Marshall County. That batch trying to expand eastward, but that one is moving more slowly. Let's get this to the most recent scan. When we show that again, we'll say about 20 miles per hour. So Ashland there at about 552. If I expand this track, assuming that this continues, and I do think that this one could continue to expand eastward a little longer. Eventually, we're looking at Blue Mountain close to about 646 there. We're looking at Ripley about 648 as that moves eastward. So to kind of clear things off and wind things out for a second, obviously the big headline this afternoon, there are thunderstorms, but largely, again, they are well below severe limits. Probably the best way to show that is using, of course, the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma, a branch of NOAA. Next couple of days, the severe risks are not for us. It is rainfall in particular that is our storyline, and talking to that rainfall and what we could potentially see. Obviously, we've had some rainfall over the next few days. Last few days, we talked about that. 7-day rainfall totals on here, pretty significant for many spots where, of course, down there toward Winston County last night, really adding up to some of those heavier rainfall totals when you add it to what we've had over the last week. So we have been fairly wet. Where do we go from here? Rainfall amounts, again, over the next 24 hours, we show ½ inches in a few locations, a possibility through tomorrow. Again, spotty locations where it's ½ inch to inch. But here's the thing, this never hits the highest totals because with thunderstorms, you're right under it. It doesn't move. An inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, certainly a possibility. So that's where, again, I would say flash flooding is the most likely issue for us to see. Though I will say that the Weather Service here in our discussion, our chat back and forth, mentioning just a second ago that they could potentially have as much as ½ inch size hail for locations in the Oxford area on that storm. So that was the storm we were talking about a moment ago here. They're up to around ½ inch hail. Let's look at the severe threats on that. We do show the potential maybe for a little bit of that as well. And let's check the camera there in Oxford before we go on with the rest of the forecast. We're on the west side of town with this camera here kind of looking into it. Oxford temperature 90, feels like 97. So certainly a steamy feel to things. Okay, so let's move on with the kind of the rest of our broadcast show here. And as you can see, the weekend forecast, and never too early to start talking about that here. And certainly looking at a weekend forecast where we're going to continue to have some spotty storms even then. 94 degrees, the high temperature for both days this upcoming weekend, fairly light winds. So again, not a lot of wind movement there, and heat indices in excess of 100 to maybe 105 degrees. So that is typically what we would expect for this time of the year. Our day planner from around 73 tomorrow morning, though. We're 87 by noontime and 88 degrees for tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Of course, probably peaking in the lower 90s before that, and that rain coverage certainly increasing in the afternoon for a lot of spots on those isolated locations. So as you'd imagine, futurecast, lots of storms out there, still some 5, 6, 7 o'clock continuing to pop up. And I think what this is grabbing here is it's saying that rain-cooled outflow we were showing moving north could still be producing some thunderstorms at that point with some gusty wind from time to time, a possibility, even through 8:30, 9 o'clock tonight. So make sure to have, if you don't already have it, that Mississippi Live Weather app. I know so many of you have downloaded that. We appreciate it with so far millions of stream views. We'll talk a little bit about what God's doing there, I think, at a later time, but certainly thank you so much for your heavy support of that. It will, I think, definitely help us to be able to continue doing this, hopefully for the foreseeable future. So thank you again. Didn't mean to go on a full-on tangent on that, but just very blessed and very thankful. So some showers out here, 10 p.m., though notice they are diminishing through around 11 o'clock to midnight or so. Still a couple showing up there closer to Kosciuszko. I'll kind of zoom out just a little bit on this here so we can get that in the shot. But yeah, down here closer to Kosciuszko and Chula, still a few of those lingering even into early tomorrow morning, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So don't be shocked to hear some rumbles overnight, but the vast majority of us, that's probably not the case. Low temperatures tomorrow morning down to around 70 in Oxford, 71 degrees in Water Valley, Grenada at about 71 as well as Eupora there. Again, normal this time of year is about 71, 72 degrees. So this is exactly what we expect for this point in July. So starting off again, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, there will be some isolated showers possibly impacting your morning commute there. The thinking is that in general, they're going to be more missed than hit. As we head toward around noontime, though, almost no way to not cover up a few. We have a couple already showing up out there toward Greenville. Again, we hit that convective temperature where storms start developing close to around noontime. A few show up there close to Clarksdale, working their way toward Oxford, 1:30, 2 o'clock. And you'll notice we do have some fairly dark returns here. This kind of dark red is what on my color scale here I have as hard as it'll go. And so we have some of those out there for around Oxford. They're not super large. They don't look like they're rotating, anything like that. So these are going to be disorganized. And so that means as they collapse, some strong wind gusts, certainly a possibility out of this. We're going to look at some power outages here in a minute, looking at some of our reports from the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. We'll check those out here in a second because I want to get out of here before we look at that. So some from Corinth back toward Tupelo, Aberdeen, and Columbus by around 5 to 6 o'clock, working their way into Alabama shortly thereafter. So we will have thunderstorms around again tomorrow. That's just this week, but luckily most of these are below severe limits by quite a bit. 89 degrees high temperature in Grenada, 88 Water Valley, 90 for the Greenwood area. But of course, this is the number that probably matters just as much, that heat index. Notice it is lower when I just pull out 3 p.m. on this. Let's break a graphic here for a second, which I always find fun. We're going to adjust this to kind of give you a little bit before and after that. So let me take this out of play mode. You might get a little unhappy with me. But again, if I break it, I got to fix it. So let's go back here and let's adjust this to kind of give you an idea. If instead of 3 p.m., this started at, say, noontime, and let's take it till 7 p.m., 6 p.m. or so. Okay, so you'll notice in doing that for tomorrow afternoon, we kind of see those peak around the 100-degree point, and then in some cases get knocked right back down. And we owe that difference there to the rain-cooled air associated with this. So that's part of the reason why things are transitioning for that. And then as we go into your Wednesday night, still some spotty showers and thunderstorms out there. This is our exclusive strike model. Fairly dry for the first part of early Thursday morning there with mostly dry conditions. And even on the wider shot here, there's not a lot of big changes to the forecast. We do have this front up to the north, but that largely stays north of us. So any kind of cooler air from this, just a non-factor in a lot of ways. I don't talk a lot about these, or at least haven't in the past. This is what we call a trough. And so it's just kind of an area of convergence, sort of like a front, but it doesn't have temperature contrast. So think about a really, really weak front that's just an area where things come together, and that coming together leads to lift and tries to lead to some showers and thunderstorms. Now, one thing that strike does not do is it doesn't go crazy on the rainfall coverage there on Thursday. I'm still going to keep it around 50 to 60% on that rain coverage for Thursday there. Still some spotty storms, and luckily expect most of those to be below severe limits once again over the next few days. So we'll continue to keep at least some of those rain chances in. With high temperatures on your Thursday, we show upper 80s, perhaps lower 90s. The thinking is obviously the rain showers, as they pop up, they limit the temperature. 89 might be fairly kind on that, but here's hoping. As we look at the forecast there for your Friday, we're at 91 degrees. We're at 94 as we go towards Saturday and Sunday. Rain chances do continue into this upcoming weekend. And the first part of next week, I do think my graphic here updated since I walked over in just a little bit ago. But yeah, expecting, again, some rain chances, possibly even into the first part of next week with this. Of course, appreciate all your folks for trusting us here at Mississippi Live Weather. You can always get your forecast at msliveweather.com. But the next couple of days, the rain chances remain obviously fairly widespread there. I'm going to check on as we kind of come back out here and look at the power outages. And this isn't always the most updated way to kind of check this, but you can see not a lot of power outages showing up specifically in our area at this point. But we did get some reports a little bit ago from around the Aberdeen area. I know that we don't always have a lot of folks there in Monroe County monitor on that, but if you do have some reports to send those in, of course, do that as well. And speaking of sending things in, a reminder, you can share your weather pictures with us. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we will show some of those. I might as well show a couple now, right? Let's go from the 7-day forecast. We'll hop down to a couple of those. Matthew in Winona, weather watcher picture here, sending in a shot from a little bit ago, some of the gray clouds. Of course, gray does not necessarily mean bad. It means tall, because tall clouds knock out more sunlight, and so they look more gray. So appreciate Matthew there in Winona for sharing this weather watcher shot with us this afternoon. Jeremy in Starkville. Again, this would be one of those shelf clouds. And It takes excellent storm spotters to tell the difference, which they do a great job. I appreciate the North Mississippi Storm Chasers for everything that they do and they see, in this kind of situation. That this is not something that's overly impressive there. But Jeremy showing us this shot here of one of those kind of shelf clouds, and this would be the rainfall in the background. They have a fuzziness because of all the raindrops, of course, that make that up there. And then Colburn. That is not right. This is Caleb in Starkville. I forgot to update that there. Caleb, who you met yesterday down there in Starkville, pretty good lightning strike. Hard to get a lightning grab. Might have had a video going. That's about the only way I've ever been able to get lightning strikes, is as if I'm able to get video going on that there. Let's see, as I kind of go back and forth here, I'm looking at what you guys are talking about here, watching at West Point. Appreciate that. From Greenville, hello Greenville, and Louisville. And someone mentions this. Chris Tidwell, I appreciate you, saying love the extended discussion on weather rather than 3-minute burst on TV. That is one thing that one of the questions is, I don't want to say how long is too long, but what is it exactly that folks are wanting as far as covering this, because I think that the most impactful thing that happens when these thunderstorms are over you, and I think we have the opportunity to hopefully deliver. I need to probably tighten up that main weather forecast closer to the beginning so we do more of this extended stuff a little deeper into this broadcast. So that's just going to be something as I'm learning how to structure this the best way so that it meets your needs, for if you're one of those folks that needs more of an extended discussion versus not. So that's something that I'm going to be working on as I try to kind of understand what is the best way to do this going forward. We're learning together. So I appreciate your patience. I do try to pay attention to your feedback as much as we can, and I have your thing up here. Now, someone says they can't find the app on Roku. Here's what I would say. I would search. Well, hold on. So let me see. I think this TV beside me here is a Roku TV. So I'm going to break my side monitors if you give it a moment, and let's find out if it's on there or not, because I'm pretty sure I can pull that up on here. Oh no, that's a Vizio TV. So hold on. Let's check the one over here. So, and I will check it between broadcasts rather than make y'all wait as I look at that. It's supposed to be dropping here pretty soon. So, speaking of dropping, this a lot of heavy rainfall with this batch out here into to be Lamar and Marion County, Alabama. We are going to continue, of course, to cover Marion, Lamar counties. That we've covered them for years. The other place. And I see no reason to stop covering them now. I'm going to do a slice onto this thunderstorm here, if it will do that. There we go, 3D. And then we'll do the slice right there so we get an idea as we bring it to the latest scan of exactly what that is kind of capable of here. We'll stop that. Yeah, I do show a little precipitation fairly high up there on this thunderstorm. That's interesting. It extends that far up, but just kind of cutting through this. The heaviest rainfall up around 20, 25, that'd be, let me think, that's 10, 20, 15,000 feet. That's a pretty impressive little return there showing up. So there probably is a little bit of hail in this. It would take some time before that got to the surface, but you in there, I think a better likelihood of you to possibly see a little bit of that. If we look at severe threats, I will bet that, shows some of that hail potential out of that there. So look at a storm track on that, just in case that ends up dropping up. I would also say probably north of Guin, we're more likely to see some of that. Let's go about 20 miles per hour, we'll say. So we show Yampertown at 551 there, 609 Brilliant, more directly in the path of that part of this thunderstorm. Back over here, the rainfall mode, and we'll clear things on off. And we'll zoom things on out. So watching, of course, for those folks back here in the Oxford area, Water Valley, Cortland, and really near Batesville. Let's look at that Batesville camera again as we check that out. Give me a moment for that to kind of populate in here. I did not hit my click. There we go. So we should have Batesville kind of come up here in a second. Of course, looking into that heavier precipitation there. I'll learn this, I promise. We'll get there. I was trying to pull that off. Different buttons do different things. There we are, looking at that heavy precipitation in the Batesville area. You can see we're now rain cooled to 79. I'm going to do maybe the slowest of slow pans on this as we kind of take a look at this storm here. Give me a moment to find that in my list and pull that up. And so we're going to kind of look back a little bit to the east of where we have it there. I say that, and there we go. I'm going a little crazy with it. So yeah, kind of looking back, this would be 210. That's not east. That would be kind of south-southwest. So that's looking back into, so if you see the radar there, so that's looking kind of back in that section there. The most intense part's actually southeast. So let's go ahead and look southeast, and I hope I don't mess up one of their time lapses a little bit. We'll look back toward the southeast. We're looking into that tower there, unfortunately. See, that's why the North Mississippi Storm Chasers know what they're doing more than I do on these. We'll get used to that over time there. So we appreciate those good folks. Another camera will come up back here to the Oxford areas. We're waiting on those heavier showers, looking back on the west side of town there, and then just the gray stuff with everybody just traveling and doing their normal thing. So no huge issues there as well. And then out into one other spot here, I think it's Crenshaw out there. Well, now that's a shot. So that's looking 193. So that would be looking, if I can kind of point you there, that'd be looking back into that section there. And that is a little more interesting for a moment. So let's look at that. I'm going to move this just ever so slightly on this Crenshaw camera there. And again, thank you to the North Mississippi Storm Chasers, as they've been a partner for years. We appreciate all the things that they have done. I'm going to mute my watch here, because at some point the boss is going to get on to me about letting my watch just go ding, ding, ding all the way through broadcasts. Let's see if I can get this to pan down just a little bit. There we go. And apparently the bugs are back. But so that is one of those little shelf clouds that we often talk about. Kind of the lowering there that looks a little more rough than it is, but there's a lot of rain-cooled air with that. And from time to time, it's not impossible. If that one kind of holds together, you get a couple of stronger wind gusts with that. Again, we're looking at that Crenshaw camera, looking mainly in a south direction there. Let's go back over here to the rainfall mode on Mississippi Live Weather Radar as we kind of bring that down for a second. And so that would be this section back here. On that other radar, it looked a little more impressive than this, but toward Marks and Bobo, that's where this kind of batch here. A lot of lightning strikes with this on this as well. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out where my lightning counter. There we are, about 427 strikes in the last 10 to 15 minutes out of that section there. So that is lifting northward at about, let's see here. You see how that's organized? That's actually a little bit organized as it moves northward. So anyway, watching that for Lula. We'll get you a storm track on this, and we'll probably shut things down here for a minute and see you back at 6 o'clock. We'll bring it to the most recent scan. I'd say that whole section, again, none of these are moving terribly swiftly, but that's probably moving close to around, I'd say, let's go 25 miles per hour or so. So Batesville, we show at 534 there. Again, as you saw from the camera, it's not that far away. Falcon 546, Sledge, we're looking at 554. Sardis at 557 at 605 there in Como. And that means at 605, you'll join us right here from Mississippi Live Weather at 6 o'clock. But from all of us, me here today, we'll see you at 6. And thank you so much for supporting us. And of course, downloading that app for iOS and Android. As I look back over here, appreciate y'all in Hamilton, Alabama, and Smithville, and everywhere else from talking with us. Yeah, Jason in Eggville mentioning not a drop of rainfall. Not yet, but there are still some showers out there potentially as we go into the evening, watching Sardis Lake. So just thank you so much for watching us and just supporting us here. So see you at 6.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that we can get help. Let's see how far we can go. Love, your mind.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.